The Cardinals' offseason was correctly and appropriately graded by a national media member at ESPN. Why? Let's discuss.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily Arizona Cardinals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Cardinals, Alex Clancy here. Follow me on Twitter at Clancy's Corner _. Follow the podcast at Locked On AZ Cards. Thank you for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen, free wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Been in sports radio and podcasting in Phoenix since 2011. Lucky to have this throne on Locked On Cardinals since 2017, going into my 8th season. Thank you for being here, whether it's been from day one or this is your first listen. Let's make this family bigger and better than ever. This episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by the Game Time app. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms, they apply. Can the Cardinals defense pop in 2024? It's the big question. The offense is going to be good. Can the defense hold suit and at least come to every game with the fortitude that they did last year? There's been some talent infusion there. Most of the rookie persuasion and second-year guy persuasion. So I'll discuss that in the third segment. Boring is better. What do I mean by that? You get that sandwiched in the second segment. First, ESPN Seth Walder put out his off-season grades for every NFL team. A signing he liked, something he didn't like, and, something kind of in the middle. And I've, listened to some shows around the valley, whether it be radio or other podcasts, and a lot of it's just like, whoa, it's too low, it's too low, it's too low. And I'm like, no, it's not. It is just right. Chef's kiss. And the reason for it, which I'll get to here in just a minute, is the Cardinals didn't need to do a whole lot. Monty Ossenfort's goal is to look at 2025, see all the money they have. They're going to have top 5 money to spend, over $90 million. They're going to have their full weight pretty much of draft picks. And they're going to have some momentum from last year's draft and this year's to be able to see where their stars are and be able to allocate funds accordingly. The goal this offseason was never to spend all the money. It's not penny pinching. The Cardinals still have upwards of $20 million to spend. They don't have to spend it this year. It's not like, you have to spend it or it's going to go away. And when you look at the offseason, it's been pretty boring, all things considered, like from a dictionary definition stance. But what I've seen this offseason is a massive level up. And that just shows how far behind the Cardinals were on the talent spectrum as pertaining to the rest of the players in the NFL or the rest of the teams in the NFL. So Seth Walder from ESPN gave the Cardinals a C+. And I think that's right. That C+ for the Cardinals, though, is graded on a curve in the sense when you go and you take biology 300 and the highest grade in the class is like a 13. So they have to weight that to be the A, and everybody else, somebody who gets a 4 out of 100 gets that C+. Cardinals. That's how far behind they were. That's what an absolute rebuild looks like. You're grading it with a different definition and you're grading it on a different curve. So when I see C+, I'm like, first of all, true. Second of all, the Cardinals got so much better this offseason. So it's definitely an appropriate grade when you're looking at it just in a vacuum. So Seth said the biggest signing was Jonah Williams. The move he liked was Zay Jones. And the move he didn't like was not re-signing Hollywood Brown. And the Hollywood Brown signing was because he only got 1 year, $7 million from Kansas City. It's like, well, you could have done better. Well, you could have brought him in. And I think that while that may be true, Cardinals could have given him 2 year, $15 million or something. They've got the money to spend. I think this is more about Monty Ossenfort not doing it just to do it anymore. A lot of it was necessary. Getting rid of Isaiah Simmons, letting everybody walk. Just letting everybody walk, trading them, moving on from all the Steve Keim moves that he made over the last handful of seasons. I think that above all of the other players, Marquise Brown was collateral damage, where it's like, you know what? It's just a bad taste for how much was given up to get you and the return on investment sense. And sure, there was injury. Kyler Murray tore his ACL 2 years ago, like whatever it was. And, it wasn't Hollywood Brown's fault for a chunk of last season without Kyler Murray there. But Hollywood Brown was never, aside from the first 6 weeks in 2022, when DeAndre Hopkins was out due to PED suspension, Kyler Murray was healthy. When he was 100 plus, 10 plus targets, it was like, okay, so if you're going to get, you don't need that every game, but if you're going to get 70% of that for the entirety of a season, yeah, we're having a different conversation now. But it's just like, you know what? It never happened. We've never seen it. And you know what? It's time. It was just one of those, I'm sorry. You should have been Tyler Linderbaum. You should not have been traded for a first-round pick. This is the last, Zayvon Collins maybe, but this is like the last, okay, sorry. And we saw no backlash from Kyler Murray. We saw none of this. It's like, you know what? We're in, the Cardinals and Chiefs are in very different trajectories. And it's time to widen up the wide receiver room for the young guys to bring them in. And that's what happened. So a C+, Bilal Nichols, Justin Jones, interior defensive line, sure, that's really going to help the Cardinals because their interior defensive line was awful last year, non-existent. Dante Stills had some good moments. Jonathan Ledbetter had some good moments before he got put on IR. But all in all, it was bad. They were the worst rushing defense in the NFL, I believe, giving up over 140 yards rushing. So even though that's boring, quote unquote, which I'll discuss in the next segment, and Justin Jones and Bilal Nichols are rotational pieces for other organizations, the Raiders and the Bears, cool. They're not necessarily going to be rotational pieces for the Cardinals. They're going to be part of that foundation in rebuilding the defensive line. I've called them the shrubbery around the rose petals that will be the young stars of the Cardinals draft and bring in free agency in next season. It's going to make Kazir White and Mac Wilson's jobs a lot easier when you have guys that have been able to collapse pockets in their career. And Dante Stills coming into his second year is going to be good. So while it looks boring, C+, it massively benefited the Cardinals because they were 4 out of 100 before the curve. Sean Murphy-Bunting, same thing. That cornerback room was collegiate level last year. It just was. It's nobody's fault. They just didn't have the talent. And it was looked at as a next year thing. So they didn't go deep in the draft. They drafted Control Clark. They didn't go deep in the draft for corners. Garrett Williams, they knew he was going to miss time. They knew that he had the trajectory to be a CB1. A lot of people saw him as going as, fringe late first round, early second round guy if he didn't tear his ACL in Syracuse midway through that season. So the Cardinals could have a steal, TBD. So far, so good from what we've seen. But yeah, Jonah Williams, good. 2-year 30, fantastic for the Cardinals, can play both sides, hasn't been graded the highest, has given up a bunch of sacks, but he is going to be a massive improvement from DJ Humphries, which will allow Paris Johnson Jr. to move over to be DJ Humphries' replacement on the left side. Massive benefit for the Cardinals. C+, sure, graded on a curve. So when I see these grades, I don't think it's a slight. I don't think it's lazy. This one, there's some definitely, lists for the Cardinals that are lazy. Power rankings is a big one. But there's still so much we don't know. The Cardinals could be top 15 power ranking during the first 6 weeks. If they go 3-3 or 4-2 in their first 6 games, we're going to be having a completely different conversation. But when I see these grades, again, ESPN put out that ranking for, the offseason for the Cardinals so far, and it was a C+. Yeah, 100% a C+. That's 100% exactly what it was. And C pluses are not all created equal. The Cardinals made a concerted effort to level up the talent base while not splurging unnecessarily on the hot button guys this offseason. And they did. And they got a lot better talent-wise. So a C+, ask me my third year of college, how I would have taken a C+. I would have shown my mom my report card with how excited I was with the classes I was taking. So it's all relative pertaining to the, the progress and where you are on that growth spectrum for a team that's in massive rebuild. And the Cardinals win. And they did it why? Or did it how, I should say, because boring is better. Yeah. I'll discuss it next. Locked On Cardinals, your team every day. This episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by the Game Time app. It's baseball season, baby. I always say I wish that baseball was my favorite sport, just for the reason that if baseball was my favorite, imagine baseball being your favorite sport. It would be like March Madness for 6 months. 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. baseball every day, more or less. And if baseball is your favorite sport, the Game Time app is where you need to go first. Okay? Long are the days removed from like buying tickets and then being like, well, I hope the seats are good. Game Time has you covered with it. You go to the Game Time app, okay? Search the game you want. Maybe you want to travel to a baseball game. Maybe you want to just see the Diamondbacks at Chase Field. You go, you see there's tickets everywhere. You click on the row, you're like, oh, that's a good price. Click on it, like, I wonder what the seats are like. They show you the vantage points from your seats. It is absolutely bonkers. And I'm going to see Green Day at Chase Field in September. I looked a couple days ago. No BS. I looked a couple days ago, and I was able to see the vantage point of differences. Like, maybe I should change my seats. I wonder what the prices are like. Game Time, they have flash sales. They've got things. You can buy tickets all the way up to the start of any event, whether it be, baseball, football when it comes up, anything, comedy, concerts, whatever it is. Game Time's got you covered. Take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account. Use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms to apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Not sure where that southern twang came from. That's not usually in my arsenal of stupid accents. The Arizona Cardinals are doing things boringly, and it's better. This is the example that I use. For everydayers, you know that I like to use metaphors, similes, if I may, anecdotes, personifications. Man, my senior English teacher would be proud of me. I think it's senior English. Junior? When you're in your fantasy football draft and you get the guy that everybody wanted and you get him with like the 8th pick. It's like, oh man, I can't believe he dropped the 8th. Or you get a sleeper in the 4th round and everybody looks at you and says, great pick. And you feel good. You get that dopamine hit when in reality, it means absolutely nothing to what's going to happen on the field. That's what it's like and what it's felt like for all the big splash moves that Steve Keim has made. It's like, oh, man, that's going to be so fun. Oh, it's going to be so fun. Oh, it's going to be so great. Oh, it's going to be so great. And then it's good for a bit, and then it's really not because there's no actual path for it to be sustainable. And then this is where the Cardinals are where they are. That's one, okay? That's not boring. That's splashy. Splash signings. Splash free agents, splash draft picks. Oh, the mock drafters are going to love that pick. Who cares? It has no actual bearing on what's going to happen. Sure, there are things that people would be akin to think that if things were from college translated to the NFL could be great, but there's a lot of fluff around drafting or signing the hot free agent or the hot draft pick. Howie Roseman is the king of this. All the big names Howie Roseman gets. All the big names from, people, the draft, like he's the darling GM. Monte Osborne is the opposite of that. And more times than not, while the superstardom is fantastic, and it's great. I mean, look at Miami. They've completely changed. They haven't won a playoff game in 25 years or whatever it is. Boring is better in the Cardinals situation. They could have signed Christian Wilkins. They had all the money. They could have done it. Could have signed a stud wide receiver to pair with Marvin Harrison Jr. They could have traded for Stephon Diggs. Sure. They didn't. Because how you build an organization is boring. It's mundane. It's monotonous. I'm going full-blown thesaurus on you. Tedious. like watching paint dry. Done. And the reason Monty Osborne can do this is because the Cardinals already had the pieces that he felt would be the ones for the foundation, the pillars of this team. So having Kyler Murray, both Monty Osborne and Jonathan Gannon said, you don't really have a rebuild with a star quarterback already on the roster. So that was kind of a loophole. You got Budda Baker. You've got James Conner. You've got Trey McBride. Okay, you got Kazir White on defense. You got Jalen Thompson. They've got their pieces where boring is how you fill it out. Now, through the draft, having Marvin Harrison Jr., obviously, BJ Ojulari last year was great. Paris Johnson Jr., the trade back and trade up was not flashy. It was calculated. So when you draft players well, free agency is going to be boring because it can be. And by boring, it means eating your vegetables, which is something it's funny how that phrase that I've used since 2017, because Steve Keim never did, goes away when you just watch it happen. I haven't had to say, I wish the Cardinals would eat their vegetables in 2 seasons now, 2 off seasons. Because that's Monty Osborne leads with it. He's like a damn vegetarian who only eats vegetables. Boring is better. Boring is bringing in 2 rotational pieces who are beloved in their respective locker rooms, in Bilal Nichols and Justin Jones, to shore up the interior of the defensive line, and then drafting a guy who could play out, hand in the dirt on the outside of the line and off the edge and in the interior, in Darius Robinson. That's how you do it. Bringing in Sean Murphy-Bunting, who's won a Super Bowl, play with one of the better defenses we've seen over the last handful of years in Tampa Bay. Drafting 2 corners. Having Garrett Williams from last year. Boring, but effective. And this is all predicated upon this working, but obviously, so far, so good. Just going to make a damn t-shirt. So far, so good. Bringing in Zay Jones to couple with Michael Wilson and Marvin Harrison Jr. Boring, but effective. Zay Jones and then Jonah Williams was probably the flashiest. I guess if we're going to say what's the flashiest signing this offseason, I don't know. It's probably Jonah Williams because finally the Arizona Cardinals organization understands they need a better offensive line than what's been put out there if they want Kyler Murray to play another decade. And sure, not the best tackle out there, but remember, free agents are free agents for a reason. Reasons are different. Could be contractual, could be not happy with, just the current team. Could be a bevy of things. Could be, in Jonah Williams' case, wanting to play with Kyler Murray. I'm sure he could have gotten more money elsewhere than what the Cardinals offered him. I'm sure he could have, especially like what guards are going for now. Tackles have always, unless it's, Zach Martin, that's not always, but tackles tend to make more than guards. Obviously, it's changed recently. But it's boring. Sweet. All the Cardinals needed to do this offseason was take that step forward. And they did. No splash signings. Sorry. No big names. Sorry. You know what the big names are going to be is coming through the draft. Exactly how Monty Osborne has drawn it up. And that is far from boring. The Cardinals need to absolutely level up in 2024 on the defensive side of the ball. Will they be able to with the team is currently constructed? That's next. Locked On Cardinals, your team every day. This episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by Bird Gang Travel Club. So things are ramping up, man. If you haven't been on a vacation in a while, and you're like, man, love the Cardinals. Our family hasn't been on a vacation in a while. I don't really want to do a whole lot of work. I just want to go somewhere and have fun. want everything planned out and just go. Well, Bird Gang Travel Club, there isn't a better entity out there for you. They provide the best and only travel fan travel experience for Cardinals road games. Talking anywhere from 50 to 500 fans. So it's not like you're just going with your own family. You're going with a bunch of other Cardinals fans in a different city. They're hitting Buffalo in week 1, Green Bay in week 6, and Miami in week 8. What's crazy right now still, they've got seats from row 5 or closer in both Buffalo and Green Bay. So not only do you get to go see your favorite team play, but it's in some of the most iconic spots across the NFL. Orchard Park, you want to jump through a damn table? Green Bay, Lambeau leaping all day long before it gets to be negative a million degrees. And then South Beach, what could be better than South Beach? Okay, these packages, top-notch. Okay, top-notch hotels for 3 or 4 nights. Lower-level game tickets, as I mentioned, Green Bay and Buffalo. Buffalo, Green Bay, week 1, week 6, 5th row and closer. Parties each night with open bar and appetizers, unique fan tours of Lambeau Field and Niagara Falls, souvenir trip, Patch State 48 trip shirt, and more. Visit birdgang.com to see all the packages. And especially the cool part, say you don't want to, throw all the cheese right away, they have payment plans available. And if you sign up by June 23rd, you receive a Paris Johnson Jr. signed mini helmet for anyone in your package. Use the code LOCKEDON to receive a bonus signed mystery mini helmet or football from a current Cardinals player or alumni while supplies last. Again, birdgang.com. Still doing 3 shows until the middle of July. Little news from yesterday, I believe. Rookies and veterans will attend mandatory camp on the same day, July 23rd. This is a good thing. Everybody on the same page. Doesn't matter if you're a veteran, rookie. You all showing up on the same day. Gotta love it. Defensive side of the ball is going to be the question mark going into this season. And question mark, as I've said a lot on this show recently, has very different definitions. Not a question mark like, oh, he just got paid $35 million a year. The big question is he worth it? That's not what I'm discussing. I'm talking about Max Melton, Elijah Jones, Darius Robinson, Mac Wilson in potentially new role, Zaven Collins in his second year in his new role, because you're what is the heartbeat of the defense, and Jalen Thompson, Budda Baker over the top. A lot of question marks. Will they produce Garrett Williams? Will they produce enough to be able to complement what's set to be a high-powered offense? And by high-powered, doesn't mean throwing the ball 50 times a game. Just means there is potency talent-wise on the offensive side of the ball. The Arizona Cardinals defense is going to need to keep up. And not being a top – the Cardinals just need to be a top – like they need to be a defense 2, if we're talking in fantasy standards. They need to be a top 22 defense. They don't have to be world beaters. They can't be a bottom 5 defense, or this is going to be a tougher year than what's already set to be a tough year. They can't be giving up 30 points a game. And I don't think that's going to happen. I think especially with what we saw last year, even though the second halves were tough to watch at times, they've got more talent on defense this year. Kazir White's healthy. Zaven Collins hopefully can show. If Zaven Collins can show something, he was one of the X factors that I did on on that little mini series. Go and check that out on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. If Zaven Collins can step up this year and show something, if you could have a B- year, this Cardinals defense can be completely different. If Budda Baker and Jalen Thompson and Rabbit, who's going to be backing up Budda Baker, if they can play opportunistic football with a level up in talent, not only in the cornerback room but in the pass rush. Because it couldn't be worse than last year, we could see a defense that could keep up. They need to be a top 20 defense. That's it. They're not asking for everything this year. A lot of talent, I'm assuming a lot of draft picks will be going on the defensive side of the ball next season. The Cardinals offense seemingly is set and forget. But can the defense step up in 2024? That is the biggest question, because going back to the first segment, the Cardinals offense, the offseason was graded appropriately. But if Bilal Nichols and Justin Jones can't stay on the field because of, talent level, and Sean Murphy-Bunting is getting run out of the gym by Max Melton and Elijah Jones, it's going to be a bigger problem than even what we think the liability could be on defense already. TBD, we're going to find out a lot more, like with cohesion levels. Like, we're not even at camp yet. We're over a month away from seeing everything. But once we get to June 23rd, we're home. Like when you're driving long distance, like say you're driving, I used to drive from Phoenix to San Diego. My dad lived there. I lived there before I moved here. It's a 6-hour drive, 5 hour and 45 minutes. And you got those checkpoints. I love those drives. We have like 4 checkpoints. One's 2 hours in, one's like 45 minutes after that, and then one's the long one. They're like, fine. I could break this up into 2 or 3 checkpoints. I want to really go. Once you hit June 23rd, you're like 2 checkpoints away from getting to where you want to be with week 1 of the Cardinals season. It'll be fun. We've got a month. Thanks for hanging out. Please go to the YouTube channel, search Locked On Arizona Cardinals, hit that subscribe button. It's only going to get better from here. Tomorrow's show, I am going to make the case pretty easily that the Cardinals have the best trajectory of any team in the NFC West. You want to check that out. Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals. Remember, without you, there is no me. I'll talk to you tomorrow.